Hello, this is Celestine Iisha Star, and I'm here to speak about the state of affairs in the world today. This is January the 28th, 2022. There's a lot going on both in the outer world and our outer world with governments and banking and just in general, the people just trying to make their way through in such a chaotic time. We have governments who are closing down the injection centers, and we still have people who are mandating masks, and they've now moved their attention into children. And so that's a very grave, and I feel very dangerous area for unconscious humans to push their agenda. So that's what we're looking at today. There's a vast array of both, as we said, outer and inner workings. We have that, as we said, timeline that's going over the cliff, and then the timeline that's rising up into illumination and awareness. And I have to say, in all positivity, I am grateful to be present here for those of illumination. And there are millions of us now. And for this month of 2022, I want to say that the celestial healers are here. It gives my heart, a steady beat to recognize that there's an intelligence that has arrived from all over the cosmos. There's thousands of them. And I've had the privilege of connecting with them in the council room. And I've also had the privilege of experiencing their cosmic celestial healing tables in which they can perform both energetic, etheric healings on our beingness while we're in our physical body. So I want to just take a breath into that. Part of the workings here on Earth is to really send the energy out to all of you who are opening up healing centers. You'll notice there's a lot of quantum healing taking place. People are talking about the med beds. And from what I understand, most of the med beds are connected to frequencies like the Rife machines, the beamer, which is the frequency of our circulation, of our embodiment, of which the blood circulates, and the opening and closing of capillaries, which is really, really beneficial. But these quantum healing devices that we have here on the planet are extraordinary, and they're coming online because they're taking us to that place where we need to go, like the Healy and such, the Spooky 2. These are really wonderful tools for humanity as we move into the future, and the future becomes the now. So I want to thank those people who are interested in having healing centers or already have one open, and for you to recognize that the celestial healers can offer and are offering even higher technologies to assist in the cleaning up, clearing up of the pandemics and all of the things that this parasitic disaster that they call viruses can be helped to be cleaned up in a way that is humane and harmonic, and we can really get a handle on it so we can move onward. I'm so excited about that. The other thing that I want to speak about, because it's very important, there are people who have been working in the backgrounds of humanity, working with understandings of different covens and the families and the deep state and all of this. And they're utilizing instrumentation that apparently is off planet. I want to honor them, first of all, those people who are working in that state of being. But I want to acknowledge also in their stating that they are the guardians of the earth, that they are not the guardian of the earth, but rather they are in union with many guardians upon the earth. And I have, you know, connections to, you know, hundreds of beings that really are the guardians and shall be to the very, very end. They've been here since the beginning, and no, they're not undergrounders, as one may state, and the enslaved or those that don't know what's going on, but rather they have hands-on, and they have been a part of the working of this solar system and the whole Milky Way. Yes, and they know what they're doing, and they're doing it with love, and they're connected to source. I've seen both sides of the ball game, and we have those that are trying to take the earth down and still hold on and command. And yes, I was raised in the inner coven, so I understand that complex as well. And I want to be clear that uh, we honor you in all respect for your work for the last 10 years or so. That stepping into that place is a big place, big responsibility. And we love that you're gathering and you're utilizing your understandings and your creativity to gather people for the good of the earth. And thank you for connecting to the sourcial energies. But by all means, I would be careful to call myself the guardian of the earth, because the true guardian is when you take a breath and you realize where that comes from. That is the true guardian of this planet. Take a breath, that's the guardian. And so we work in unity, and I want to thank all the guardians who are here working on the planet on behalf of all creation. I want to thank all those who are the light and the love workers. And, you know, with light, uh, light has its range of dark and light, but, you know, you bring it into the center pole of oneness and unity. That was unified in the creation and the expression of bringing the earth forward. So just wanted to bring clarity to that. And the High Spiritual Council is sending their acknowledgement and just giving you an awareness that there is far more going on besides what you're sharing with humanity, far more powerful and positive, illuminated things going on, and to not just restrict your speaking perhaps to just what you know as far as scheduling and people waiting in rooms and this and that, but rather to acknowledge that there's things that you may not be aware of, even sitting in your device, that others are aware of, such as myself, and they want to give acknowledgement to all the different things. And as far as I know, even through the thousands of years of Solomon and such, they never did completely have the earth, because whoever owns the grid owns the earth. And the group mind, which is the electromagnetic grid, has always been held by that of the Radiant One. Yes, there was a battle, but I could tell you at every moment there was a balance going on through the expression of the Radiant One, because we're only expressions of that, you see. We are expressions of the Radiant One. And when I asked, I said, well, why is it so confusing, and so much drama is going on between that which is reverse consciousness and unified? And I was told this is a place in which the tumbling of the stones and you become polished as a diamond, you know? So some of this workings was purposeful, and other parts was willful upon a person learning how to become their source self, because we all carry the seed of the source. And we're aware of the portals, and we're aware of the different amoebas that were sprayed upon people, because it was I who really brought forth the amoeba, the mother amoeba that was killed not too long ago. Yes, I experienced it. I called in the High Spiritual Council to help assist in killing that and the extraterrestrial that was governing this amoebas and the animite, parasitic energies that was going out into the world. And thank you for assisting in the cleanup, as you said. And so we're just getting these little details, you know, that people will feel like, you know, that there's been a huge rescue where the whole time there's been this turning of the wheel from that of reverse consciousness and keeping it in balance. We had a team of about 46 of us, and we were able to dispel, you know, the black box syndrome and huge, enormous um, uh, energy fields, which had the black box within it and was feeding it out to the population. So we could tell stories of this, but it's not necessary. The main thing is that there is many, many of us working in unity, and we want to join with you in working in unity, but understanding that we are all a part of the radiant one who is the guardian of this earth, that which is manifesting this earth. And so we just leave that at that. I want to be clear for those of you who heard the words Solomon, Nefertiti, and Isis all in one breath, and saying that they were gone and gone to source. Well, I have to say my first reaction was, you know, we're going to focus on mainly Nefertiti and Isis. And so Isis is my sister, not Isis, but Aset. And so when I heard the word Isis, I had to really back it up and say, okay, there's more than one Isis. And if you're saying that Isis was the bride of Satan or Solomon, I had to really back it up and say, okay, what are they saying? And so as a being of Kemetic blood, as a being who was raised in the ancient Egyptian understandings, and a Syrian who walked through the stargates hundreds of thousands of years ago, who knows the plan on earth, who knows what that score is for our people. Let me speak on behalf of our people that the Aset was not the bride from which they were speaking of, but rather Aset is the mother of the world. She's always been the highest vibrational frequency on this planet in her heart and her soul and her working. And I know that after the floods, part of her working was to get the bodies back onto the planet to assist humanity in birthing, the women to birth. This is one of her roles. And so she became the mother of the world. She's a high-level geneticist, and among other things. But if you look at the history of her work and the praise and the prayers, and you know, for all over the world, even in Atlantis, over in Bimini, they have an Aset temple to Aset. Now, the Greek word Isis is a slang. So I have to say to myself, when you say the word Isis, is that slang? Is that, where is it coming from? You're not clear. But I do know that it's Greek and it's not Aset, who is Kemetic. And you understand that Mother Mary was her last incarnation. She's one of the few illuminated beings who has permission to interact with humanity. She comes in a rainbow body and she always brings love. I mean, really, you cannot take her working and jam it into Bride of Satan. It just doesn't go. So it had to be something else, and I'm open to whatever that may be, but certainly that is not the Isis that we know and love as the mother of the world, my sister. I can guarantee you that, and I am Nebuchadnezzar, and we are of the Syrian nation. And so I want to be clear with all of you who are listening that rest assured that the mother of the world is clear in her workings, and as she appears to you in her love, you will feel it immediately. And that is nowhere near what was being spoken of of this other Isis. So that's interesting. Let's hold that thought for a minute. Now we're going to look at Nefertiti. Now, Nefertiti, the bust of Nefertiti was taken in out of Egypt, and we don't even know for sure if it had been some kind of um, made up by the archaeologist, created for him to have a discovery. You see, he was, I believe, German, and so they took it into Germany. And this bust of Nefertiti, I think, is in the Belgium Museum. But when I think of it, you know, some of these esoteric covens and such, they did worship. They worshiped, and they had to worship different gods and goddesses. And you don't hear of too much of the dark goddess. Um, it just doesn't come through. And even in the big ceremonies and the covens and such. But it could be that there was a coven who honored the goddess Nefertiti, but it was the dark goddess named Nefertiti, not the Nefertiti of Kemet. So I want to separate the two names and want to separate that, and until there could be further evidence of what we're talking about here, I want to hold to the history and the knowledge of the Nefertiti that we know and who was loved by Ramesses enough to make her a temple. And so she ruled Egypt, a portion of Egypt. She ruled as a queen king uh, for several years. I think it was 12 years or so. If you look at her history and what she did for the people, you will know without a shadow of a doubt she is not the bride of Satan. You cannot walk into these temples that open your heart and you feel the illumination and the prayers and the work for the people, and also to see how she brought the land up. You know, both her and Hatshepsut were some of the best rulers over the land because the people flourished and they had trade and this and that. So do your research. Go into her life, the one in Kemet, which is the ancient land, the black lands of what you call in slang, Greek slang, Egypt. So I just wanted to lay that at the table, put that on the table, and be very clear about the Solomon and all of these who did use his powers with the jinn and did have powers and maybe misused it. That's a lot to crack open. And this is not the time for me to do that because I want to just say the state of the world is such. And we know that the time is up because the energies are rising. So the reverse consciousness is now dissipating. And yes, I love feeding out the information about contracts ending and then giving you permission sitting on the equipment that you do, that you don't have to dispense money to them. And I think that's very powerful, the place where you are. And I just want to honor that. And I want to speak a little bit into the work with the ultra-terrestrials and the interstellar people, and how that's looking for humanity who's been waiting for the United States government to announce disclosure. And actually, they've been feeding out these little scenarios of disclosure. And most of the time, it's information true with disinformation. So I want to warn people that when you're looking to the government, first of all, presidents, any of those official people are not the ones who hold command over disclosure. You want to go deeper into the deep state, CIA, you want to look deeper in to these higher covens, and these people, want to go higher to the higher echelons and deeper in to find out who's really holding the golden ring to pull and open the veil. And also, we do know that a lot of the off-planet entities are the ones working with the connection of the deep force and the secret governments and all of that. Yeah. So if you're looking towards that for your answer, is it real? Then I have to say that with full suggestion to understand that they will never tell you the full truth. It just is not in their nature. Reverse consciousness is set to control, manipulate. These are virtues. And we want to honor that. I mean, they've done a good job in what they're doing, and there's no shame, no blame. I'm just speaking as a historian, speaking of the state of affairs, that in disclosure, I was looking back and I'm like, okay, so the rainbow fairy tale of, we had the War of the Worlds, the way, the day the earth stood still movies, this was in 1933 was the radio War of the Worlds. And we had uh, the day the earth stood still in the, 1830s. Um, there was Superman in 1938, believe it or not. The comics came out. And in 1966 to 69, we had Star Trek, which was interesting because that was linked up with the Council of Nine, this secret government experimentation of having mediums contact the Council of Nine, which they did. And Roddenberry hung out with this. And from that, he began to write Star Trek. So what I would say is they've been rolling this out, Ninja Turtles, Marvel Comics, and I want to just take a breath into that and say, well, what is that all about? What are we going to get out of it? So what are you going to get out of it is information with disinformation, and the only way they can come forward is to be the hero. But yeah, we know that they have dirt on their hands. I mean, they've shut down so many people, they've harmed them, they've killed them. We know people have gone missing. We know, I'm speaking of the history of all of this. Any researcher can tell you that people are frightened, of the Men in Black, and there's even, the movie, The Men in Black, with Will Smith and such. So, look to our government? I think not. I think if you do, we realize that they will never tell you the full truth, the whole truth. And what's rolling out now, we had the Nixon papers that he wrote to humanity that was supposed to be shared with all of us on June 26th, 2020, didn't come out, June 26, 2021. But what they're planning is to have an invasion. If you have an invasion, it steps you out as a hero for humanity, but it also steps in as control. So they have to figure out how can they control the populace, and at the same time tell you just enough that tell you just enough of the truth. Like the tic tac thing that's going on with the Navy. Too many crickets. I mean, I've got better shots than that. And the truth, they can just really just say it if they want, but it's not happening. So, listening to President Obama, he was interviewed. Is there UFOs? And he says, well, yes, they told me that they see things and objects that are unidentified. Okay, UFO, fine. What about Roswell? Well, I asked them about the bodies and they said there are no bodies. But everybody who's a true researcher knows that that is not so. So here we go. We've got a former president telling the world something that is totally information, but disinformation, you see. So that's how they're going to serve it up. And so as far as disclosure, that's the truth of truth. So look to your researchers, look to the ones that are standing on the front lines, look to those of us who are experiencers. We're going to tell you our experience. And I'm going to say to you, this is my disclosure to the world. Yes, there are other intelligences in this world, some that live on the planet. This is not just humanity's planet, excuse me, but we've been sharing this planet with other intelligences for thousands and thousands of years. And it's okay. It's okay. You're alive. You have your life. Nobody's bothering you. There are some people who make inner agreements, or their parents, or it's connected to the government in some way. So yes, they get contacted. But you really have to go deep into each person to understand why were they contacted? What were they doing to be contacted? And was it in a good way? Or, is this an awakening for them to awaken to their own self as a galactic being and a biological unit? There's different forms of contact. So it's happening right now on a grand scale. People are awakening because the vibration of the sun is going down. The vibration, let us just say the magnetic field, so that the pulse of the sun is weakening. And that leaves us on Earth vulnerable to the cosmic rays that are coming in as our magnetic field becomes weakened. And so we're taking in more light, more energy, and so we are growing and our brains are activating and modulating and learning how to carry more light. As you carry more light, your frequencies rise. As you rise in frequencies, your consciousness awakens to these higher levels of intelligence. And you're connecting to, and you begin to hear the voices. So many are chanting, so many are connecting to these beings. But it's part of our awakening, and we came here for this. A lot of people have come here for this, and it's time for the great awakening is over. It's time for the work. So here we are, 2022, and I want to say that the first of this year is all about intent. So take the time to go within and see the future, see what it is we need on this planet, see humanity is unified, because right now we're going at each other and one person can't agree to another. And as long as we can't agree or we're divided, how are we going to bring in our interstellar cousins, our kin, who are here to help us to balance out the magnetic fields? Science, medicine has so much to offer. And so let's take a moment and just bring our species together. If we could just visualize that, visualize for your life. And then as we move into March, there's going to be pulsing to call forth the divinity on the planet, to call forth the divinity. And so you as a divine being have available information that is beneficial for the earth. And so I just want to honor you all in your divinity. And as the pulse comes through, there's millions of us. So you have to think as we come into a group unified mind of how we can move our earth together as one unified beingness. And so I just want to state that very clearly. Let me see in my notes, just hold to the truth seekers, keep your heart open. If you really are ready for contact, the celestial healers and the high spiritual council are two that I would recommend strongly. And to really see positive change for the earth, use your vision because the universe is listening deeply, and we're going to begin manifesting very quickly what's within our heart, what's within your desire. Clear your mind, see us forward in a positive way. And so I'm really happy to be here to share with you this state of affairs. I love you all, and it's been wonderful to be able to look into the world and see the goodness. There is goodness in each one of us, and we just have to bring it out and recognize through our divinity or just through the heart. Be a human and recognize the time is now. If we unify in a way that's good, stop seeing the differences and seeing the uniqueness of each person, and we're moving forward and elevating our consciousness beyond race, beyond nation, beyond global, into our galactic hood. Okay, so glory in the light of the radiant one. This is Dr. Celestine Iisha Star sending out blessings. And glory in the light. Blessed be.